Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. Well, poised for a decade of historic growth. That's the view from Eli Lilly and Co CEO Dave Ricks, who says the company's innovation-based strategy will continue to fuel a pipeline of new products in areas like diabetes, obesity, oncology, and Alzheimer's. Earlier this month, another encouraging sign for Lilly and downtown Indianapolis, a return to work in person for thousands of office workers. With more on the Lilly outlook and work in a post-COVID world, pleased to welcome back to the show Dave Ricks. As always, Dave, thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you again.
Hey, I want to talk about the outlook, and you had some interesting things to say to the Economic Club of Indiana this week, but I mentioned in March, you came back to work, Lilly came back to work in full force. Now, researchers and manufacturing folks have been working through the pandemic, doing great work, but now you're essentially fully back to work.
That's right, yeah. So that really started March 1st. And, for us, making new medicines is a team sport. So we need to do that together. Of course, we've, like a lot of companies, considered new flexibilities for employees that they began to appreciate during the pandemic and really find the best of both worlds. But for the downtown economy, Lilly is back in the office. In the middle of the week is particularly busy for us, and that's how we want it. When we run into each other in the hallways, we come up with new ideas and really advance the company that way.
Yeah, and you mentioned that impact to downtown. I think it is substantial to get the Lilly workforce downtown, to be sure. I mentioned the Economic Club of Indiana. You had some interesting comments this week talking about kind of that forward-looking view of a decade of historic growth. Talk about that.
Well, the company's really been thriving, and despite the challenges all around us, it seems, we've really risen to the occasion, and I'm so proud of our team. 5 years ago, we set out to really, after coming out of a difficult period, which my predecessor, John Lechleiter, led through, really accelerate the company. And that's exactly what's happened. We've added about $10 billion to the top line of our pharmaceutical business. The stock has appreciated over 300% in that period of time, really top of the charts in the industry. And that's all driven by creating new medicines for tough diseases that really help people. Of course, we made medicines for COVID, but increasingly medicines for diabetes, for cancers, and as you mentioned, for Alzheimer's disease are driving the growth of the company. Really an exciting time for science and an exciting time for the company as we try to arrest some of the most difficult health challenges in the world.
You several years ago, you said, hey, we want to launch 20 medicines in 10 years.
Yes. Right?
And you are well along that path.
Yeah, I think we're 7 years into that. We've launched 16 or so, and well on our way to hitting that goal. We actually had a meeting earlier this week to say, okay, what's next? Because that seems 2 a year, which is, by the way, would put us at the top of the pharmaceutical industry at that rate. We've done that now. What else can we do? Can we go to 3? How more productive can we be? And we're optimistic. Yeah. We can continue to find another gear.
You also talked about, in your speech this week, challenges facing Indiana. You talked about Indiana being a business-friendly state and a good state to do business in, but some challenges when it comes to education, the health of Hoosiers, workforce, and those types of issues.
That's right, yeah. Well, Indiana's been our home for almost 146 years, and it will remain that way. Just to reassure everyone, we've had some investment announcements outside the state, and I get a lot of calls about those because people want to check in on that. But two things are true. One is when Lilly does well, the state can really do well. We all know there's a lot of spillover into the economy. Lilly Endowment is very generous, and they're our largest shareholder. Many good things are happening because Lilly's been doing well. But we also need a thriving environment to do well. And we would like to grow here. So just calling attention to kind of in the next decade, in the new economy, what we need to pay attention to as a business community and as a government policy-making community, which goes beyond the traditional measures of success, like low tax rate and low cost of living. Now we need to think about, is our workforce ready to engage in businesses that are very technologically based, whether it be information technology or pharmaceutical technology? And overall business costs in the state are really not so driven by taxes anymore. They're pretty low, but rather by healthcare and workforce costs. And so how can we be better at matching skills and then having the new business-friendly environment, which goes beyond the previous scope of what I think a lot of policymakers used to think about.
And you believe that whether it's for Lilly or any other company, as they look to grow, expand, relocate, those are the things they're looking for.
Yeah, I think that's what a cutting-edge environment looks like. And we do really well, top 10 on many of the traditional markers like cost of business and tax. We're often in the bottom 10 on these other factors. It's time we all pay attention to that. And then underpinning that are two other factors which, like them or leave them, are with us. One, the drive to have a green economy and giving businesses the choice of how they buy their energy, renewable or not, and inclusion. And here everyone thinks about minority group members, and that's a key thing, particularly in urban settings like Indianapolis, but also increasingly in the state, including rural areas. How can we keep kids in the state who want to work here in Indiana and include them in our economy? And the new topic, of course, immigration. And people who aren't Hoosiers yet, but could be. We need population growth. To reach our potential. And many skilled people who want to work hard should think of Indiana as a destination. I'm not sure we always advertise it that way.
Yeah. Interesting perspective, and perspective, too, on Lilly's long-term growth. Dave Ricks, CEO at Eli Lilly and Company, thanks as always.
Great to be with you.